Hey everyone, this is Ross. Welcome to another Manna. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about faith. I have no set time limit on this, so I'm just going to share some things from my heart and share some stories that God has, that are my stories, my story, my walk with God, and how faith has been my faith in God, how it has brought me to where I am now, and my faith in God, and how I have seen Him do what only God can do, and just share some things that maybe will strengthen and encourage you in your faith and your walk with God. So there's a verse I love. It's in Mark chapter 11, verse 22, and there's a simple phrase in that verse that Jesus is telling His disciples. He's telling them, He's encouraging them, because they've just seen Him do a miracle. And read the book of Mark chapter 11, you'll see the miracle and the story's all about. But He looks at them and says, look guys, have faith in God. Have faith in God. I want to encourage you to have faith in God. First thing I want to say about faith is like a muscle. Recently, and I say recently, within the last 2 weeks, I began a workout program called P90X, but I'm calling it P70X because the 90 stands for how many days you do the program. And I've got some things going on after 70 days that will disrupt me from being regular with the program. So I'm excited about it. Now, when I begin this program again, because I've done P90X 2 other times in my life, maybe 3, and I realized that when I engage this workout program, if you engage it and do exactly what it tells you to do, it's massive amounts of push-ups, pull-ups, weights, bends, all kinds of leg work, etc. And if you were to do even 15 to 20 the very first day, at least for me, you'd be so sore that within a few days you wouldn't be able to continue the program for about a 2 to 3 day stretch because your body would be recovering from the soreness. So what I've done, and I've done this now the last 2 times I've done this program, is I do a moderate amount. For instance, this time, full disclosure, the first week I just did 4 reps, 4 of every exercise. And that way I was starting the program. I was getting my body used to the motions, used to the lifting, used to the activities, but I wasn't overdoing it to the point that it would be a detriment by way of soreness and being worn out, etc. Second week, upped it to 6, which was this last week. Today is my last time before tomorrow, which is a day of rest according to the program. And that means on Thursday I start again, and I'll probably jump up to 8 or 10. I'm debating. I'll probably jump up to 10 because my body is already acclimating to the workouts. So when you're exercising your faith in God, God allows us to exercise the amount of faith we have without it coming back and being hard for us the next time to continue to have this faith in God. In other words, we exercise the amount of faith we can based upon who we are, what we've experienced with God, what we know of God. And we may be exercising all the faith we have in God, but like a muscle, it might be a immature young muscle that doesn't have a lot of strength in it yet. It's not a large built muscle. But it does the very best it can, and the faith we exercise that faith in God. And the reason we're exercising our faith because there's an adverse situation of some sort. And as we know, just like with weights, with faith, the adversity is what gives strength because we're facing that adversity. We're exercising our faith muscle, and it's going to grow stronger and bigger, and we'll be able to have greater faith as we go along. So I think as I'm just thinking out loud with you about Mark 11:22, He doesn't say have a lot of faith in God. He doesn't say have all your faith in God. He doesn't say have great faith in God. He just says have faith in God. Just trust Him. Even if you have very little faith muscle to trust Him, trust Him. And watch Him grow you in grace and watch your faith grow so that you can trust God for greater things. I apologize for the rubbing of the nose and the playing with the glasses and the eyes. My allergies attacked me today about 2 hours ago now, and they're trying to beat me up and tear me down. I hate allergies. Allergies are the devil. So now, let me tell you a story about that. So, trusting God, it can sound so simple. And pastors, preachers, Bible teachers, etc., yes, verbally assessing the truth of have faith in God is very simple. Like, just have faith in God, just trust Him, right? And trusting God is not complicated, but it's complex, because you're releasing anything and everything that you can do to resolve whatever the situation may be. And you're literally, you've heard the phrase, let go and let God. You're literally, faith is saying, it's out of my hands, not because I can't do anything, but everything I can do is never going to be enough. It's out of my hands. And you're literally releasing it into God's hands. That's what faith is releasing it and saying, here it is, it's yours, because I can't, but you can. And then not trying, and then the second part of releasing this to God is not saying, God, I'm giving it to you, now here's how I want you to do it. Or this is what I want you to do. That's not faith. Faith is not helping God figure out how He's going to solve the problem or work the situation. Faith is saying, God, I do have ideas and I do have strength to face this situation to a degree, but I know all that I have is not going to fix, resolve, or overcome. And so by faith, I'm going to let go. I'm going to exercise that muscle. I'm going to let go. I'm going to place this in your hands, Father. And I just want you to take it and do whatever you're going to do with it. So when we release these things by faith to God, whatever these things are, we could get into that if you have questions. I think you understand what these things may be. Maybe you don't. I hope you do. But when we release these things to God, we're voluntarily and completely letting go of anything we can do to resolve it, and anything that we know or want to say as far as input, because God's not coming to us for advice. He doesn't need to, He doesn't have to, and He doesn't. Now, that doesn't mean He doesn't listen to what we have to say when we give advice on situations, but He doesn't need it and He doesn't want it, because His ways are not our ways and His thoughts are not our thoughts, and what He's going to do for you when you release this to Him by faith is going to be greater than what you could do for yourself. And instead of trying to figure it out, faith it out. Let me quote another verse, because I am doing this study on the book of Proverbs, and this will be coming up in my this will be coming up very soon in my Sunday night Bible study. Trust in the Lord is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge God, and He will direct your paths. So, let me tell you a story involving faith, but I'm gonna do something I've never done on these videos. I'm gonna pause it for just a second and then jump back in. Alright, so I paused it, here I am. That's better, I think. So, let me share you a story about just trusting God and how that worked practically in our lives when we lived in the state of Missouri. Now, my wife I've been blessed, number one, with one of the most amazing women I know. And my wife is a treasure and a blessing. And she's followed me as I felt I've been led of God and trusted Him. I'm not saying I doubt everywhere we've gone, everything we've done has not been of God, but I'm not so sure it was His exact idea, but He allowed us to venture. And through that adventure of life together, we've been some places, done some things. So one of the places we've gone and the things we've done is rescued a church in a little town in Missouri called Elsinore, Missouri. I'm sure the sign is still the same. When you go into the town, it says population 369. And it was basically 25 to 30 minutes away from a town called Poplar Bluff, which is the bigger town in the Boot Hill area of Missouri. And that bigger town was about 15, 16,000 people at the time. Now, I don't know if those populations are still the same. By the way, our city, our little community, Elsinore, was not the smallest. There was another town smaller, I think it's 200 or less, called Hunter, Missouri, not far from Elsinore, miles away down the road. So anyway, in that little town, as we were ministering there in that church, God bless, by the way, had 13 people vote on me and got 100% vote to come and be the pastor and the pastor's family there in that community, which may not sound like a lot, but they had tried to vote on 2 previous men who had come, and neither one of those men met the qualifications within the bylaws of the church to pastor, because the percentage was less than 75% of agreement for them to come. So that definitely was, God led us there, and God blessed our opportunity there to minister, and took a church that was running in the 20s, and we left, it was running in the 70s and 80s. It was quite an experience, actually. While we were there, we had a vehicle wreck where our van was totaled. Now, at this point, we had 4 kids with one on the way. Our 5th child was born there in the town of Poplar Bluff, the small town up the road, or the bigger town, up the road, 15, 16,000 people. So at that time, of course, we needed a van. We had another vehicle, but it wasn't big enough for our whole family to fit in. I believe at that time we had the truck, and then we had the van. So the van was totaled, and my wife and I prayed, God, help us to find a car when we get the insurance money from the vehicle, because it was totaled out, to be able to buy the vehicle our family needs next. And in those times of prayer, as we're waiting for the insurance check to arrive, God spoke to us and said, I want you to trust me, and I want you to use the money, because I think at this time we had the 5th child with no insurance. And God basically spoke to us and said, I want you to go debt free, pay the cost, the hospital bill, etc. for your child, and trust me, I'm going to give you a vehicle. So that's the road we took. Have faith in God, trust in the Lord with all your heart, don't lean to your own understanding, just acknowledge Him, let Him do the directing, and let Him do the leading and the providing. Okay? That's faith. That's faith. So we did that. We paid the bill, had some money left over, paid some other bills, made sure things were taken care of. Of course, the kids were in private school up in Poplar Bluff, Missouri, so that made it a little bit tougher financially. My weekly income was $250 a week for a family of now to be 7. Now, they did graciously provide a house, and the electricity, utilities and all that were covered, and the house, we didn't have to pay rent. And it wasn't a high-end community as far as the average income was very low there. So nationally, when you compare the national averages. So we did. We went debt-free and trusted God. And week went by, 2 weeks went by, a month went by, month and a half, 2 months go by. It was a Sunday night after church. We lived right across from the church. So that was a blessing as well in a lot of ways. A little parsonage was right across the road from the church building. So Christy and the kids went home. I stayed at church, and I went to my office and I said, now God, I'm struggling here. I said, we prayed about this. We talked about this. We got the insurance money, and we believed as a couple, we heard you speaking to us and declaring that we should go debt free. But I said, God, either our hearing is bad, or you mumbled or something, and we need a vehicle, God. We just can't continue like this. This is not what I thought you said would happen. Now, At that point when I was saying that to God, was my faith wavering? Maybe. Had I trusted God? Absolutely. Was I trusting Him then? Absolutely. Listen, we had made a decision. We had no way. There's no way on God's green earth that we could come up with any money for a down payment or any money to pay a vehicle, like go put a down payment and make a car payment. We didn't have the money. But we had by faith trusted that this is what He was going to do. That he had told us that He was going to provide this vehicle for us, right? So I say that prayer, I talk to God, I'm like, God, I don't know what to do, so here, you got to do something. I wasn't mad, wasn't frustrated, not in the truest sense of either one of those words, but I was just, man, God, what are we going to do? The next night after dinner, Monday night, my wife gets a call. And I can't remember if it was from her parents or from the lady in Tennessee who knew her parents. The long story short is there was a lady in Tennessee where we had come from years before, a long time before. But her family lived there and they had shared with the church at some point in time, hey, pray for the kids, Ross and Christy, they need a vehicle, But it was this particular night that God had laid on this woman's heart to give us a vehicle. Long story short it was a Ford Excursion. It was the nicest vehicle even today. And I've got a nice vehicle, but it's not like this one. Nicest vehicle I've ever had. And God gave it to us. Literally just gave it to us. And we were blessed. We were overjoyed. We went and found because I didn't know what the vehicle was. She just said, I have a vehicle for you. Can you make time in the next 2 weeks to come and pick it up? And we're like, yes, we will make the time. And we did. And it just blessed our family. Now, what was very interesting was the woman gave us the vehicle and then said, by the way, if for whatever reason this vehicle does not work out for you, it just doesn't fit you or your needs as a family, you have my blessing to do what you need to do to get the vehicle you need to get. And I'm in my head going, are you kidding me? We're a big family. This is a big vehicle. This is amazing. Are you kidding me? God bless you. Thank you. I'm like, no, this is wonderful. Thank you. The saying, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. And by all means, this was an incredible gift. The expensive vehicle. The value of the vehicle at that point in time was a $50,000 to $51,000 vehicle. More than I'll ever have again, as far as I know. Nor do I need an expensive vehicle, but it was awesome. So we're thinking, man, we've been blessed. This is a great vehicle. Everything is kosher. But true to form, about a month and a half later, after having the vehicle, and it was diesel, by the way, diesel gas, we realized we could not afford to pay for this gas. It was $90 a week in gas for us to drive that vehicle, for the kids to go to school, and us to we weren't going on trips, we weren't going long distance outside of the town where everything existed, because we lived in such a nowhere area. We had to go to that bigger town to get our groceries, take the kids to school, medical things, just practical stuff, right? And I'm like, man, God, I don't know what to do. I can't afford to put gas in this thing. And God's like, here's what I want you to do. He said, there's this that used car lot on the other end of town, because when you drive into town, north to south, we're always on the north end. He said on the south end of this town, there, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, is this used car dealer. I want you to go there and they'll help you with your vehicle. I'm like, thank you, God. Now, at this point in time, I was still vague and foggy about God speaking to you like this. I was sort of like this was God, and I was sort of like this is just a good intuition. Now I just know God's voice. And when He speaks to me, I know it's Him. And we have conversations every day, sometimes all day. And God is good like that. The fact that the God of heaven, the universe, spends time talking to me every day is just, that's why he's God. It's just like, wow. So I go down to this used car dealer, and I'm going to wrap up the story because we've already been 20 minutes into this little devotional. But I go down to that car lot. I get out, and of course, the 2 or 3 salesmen come out, and they're like, hey, you want a vehicle? I'm like, no, you see what I'm driving? I got a vehicle, I'm good. But here's what I need. I need to speak to the owner. I think it was Mike's used car lot or something. We'll just go with Mike's. If I'm ever back there in Missouri, I'm going to go down to this place and take a picture in front of it and just put it in my scrapbook of memories of God's goodness. But so I go in and I talk to the owner. We'll just say his name is Mike for the sake of the story. And I tell Mike what I want to do. And here's the plan I'd come up with, right? When God told me to go here, I thought, God, I know what you want me to do. I can consign this to him. He can sell it on his lot, and I'll give him a percentage of the sale, and then we'll use the money to buy a vehicle that we can afford, blah, blah, blah. That's what I had in mind. Now, that was not God. That was just me thinking this is what God's going to do. But remember, at the beginning of this video, faith is not telling God what to do or how to do it. Faith is trusting that God knows what he's going to do, and that we just need to trust that he knows better than we do, and that he will do what only he can do. And that's faith. So I get there, I'm talking to Mike. He goes, hey, listen, I like what you're saying, Ross. I like your story. Thank you for telling me. He said, here's the problem. I've actually tried to consign my friends' cars on my lot, but my insurance company will not cover any other vehicles except for those I have purchased through my company and maintain those on my lot. Those are the only vehicles. So he said, I just can't do it financially, legally, or otherwise. I can't keep your vehicle here. So I'm sorry, but here's what I will do. Talk to my sales manager, Bob. Of course, I don't know his real name, right? So we'll go with Bob and Mike. Go down the hallway over here, talk to Bob, leave him your information. If we hear anything, we'd be glad to help you. Because, we're here to help our community any way we can. Man, I'm like, okay, well, thank you. And I'm thinking, man, God, I thought that was a good idea. What's going to happen? I wonder. I go and sit down with Bob. Say, Bob, hey, Mike told me to come talk to you, so I just want to share with you some information about this vehicle, and maybe you could help us sell it if you hear of a buyer. He goes, okay, great. So I told him the story, and he enjoyed the story, the same story I've told you, how God gifted us this vehicle. And I gave God the glory as I do now, because only God can do these things. I'm talking to him, he goes, okay, well, let's get down to the nitty gritty, and he gets out his pen and paper. He says, okay, what kind of vehicle is it? I said, well, it's a Ford Excursion. He says, great. He said, what's the style? XL or whatever, Okay, good. What's the year? All right, he's writing this down, and he's like, wow, that's pretty cool, He said, how many miles? And I told him the miles, and he goes, really? That's okay. And I'm like, it's kind of weird, his response, but I've never been around Bob, so I don't know if he always responds like this or not. And then he goes, what's the color of this vehicle? And I think it was a champagne color. So here's the color. So he puts his pen down, puts his glasses down or something. He adjusts himself. He looks at me. He says, Ross, there's a man, and he named a man. He said, this man owns 5 commercial properties in this little town. He's one of the big wheels. He's an avid hunter. He has 2 incredible, beautiful hunting dogs. Ross, he was in here 2 days ago asking about the vehicle that you want to sell, including the color, because this guy has the money to buy what he wants. And he says, he was telling Bob, if you come across this vehicle this year with this mileage and this color, I'm buying it. He said, Ross, I've already got a buyer for your car. I'm like, dude, are you serious? He says, yes. And because he has affluence, because he's affluent, I should say, he can write you a check whenever he's ready. So let me contact him to see if he really is interested, and I'll tell him that I got a vehicle for him. I said, what is this going to cost me? He said, look, this is God. We're not charging you for this one. Within days, I had a check in my hand for that vehicle. I took 2/3 of the check in cash because I had already been looking at other vehicles. Put it on the desk of my car dealer where I bought my truck and said, hey, Steve, because that was my salesman's name. I said, Steve, I like this van. And I told him, because he had already gone with this, I like the van. Here's what I'm going to do. And I put $16,000 on his desk in cash. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to talk to your sales manager and see if you'll take this $16,000 for that $19,000 van. He was gone maybe 2 minutes. Hey, Ross, good news. They're cleaning up your van right now. We'll have it pulled around front in the next 8 minutes. Congratulations on your new car. So guys, I guess the moral of the story is this. Have faith in God. Leave the results to Him. Don't try to figure out how He's going to do it. Don't try to tell Him how you want Him to do it. Continue just to rely on His wisdom, His grace, His goodness, and know in your heart that God loves you more than you can ever know. And when He speaks to you, listen. When He leads you, go. When He stops you, you wait. But when He tells you to run, you run. The moral of the story is just have faith in God. I hope that story, which is true as I am sitting here today, blessed you in some way and encourages you to have more faith in God. And let me just say this, if it blesses you, please share it. It might bless somebody else too. All right. Have a good day.